Yep, we're on live.
We're live, everyone.
Yep.
Aloha Friday, everybody.
How you doing, gang? You guys have a beautiful day. Kind of warm today.
Warm is not the word. It's hot, it's muggy, it's uncomfortable. Ugh. I get the fan blowing straight in my face, the fan blowing straight in my face, but it's blowing some warm air there, Charlie.
Yep, yep.
Okay, let me get all this stuff set up here. Come on, here we go, here we go, here we go. All right, all right, all right. Welcome everybody to our COVID-19 discussion on this wonderful, hot, and muggy Thursday evening. Whoo, steaming. It's steaming. I hope the trade's coming back shortly because I don't know how
Yep,
much longer I can deal with this heat. I think the air conditioning company is going to make some money this summer, I think.
yep, yep.
I think so. Well, what's that? Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We are going to have some special guests tonight, and we're going to be discussing how do we get this is kind of tied into the discussion we had a while back about the prison release program. We had Representative Val Okimoto on and talked about how with the COVID-19 issue, the pandemic, that the judiciary, the public defenders, all made a run for the early release of prisoners, and we had talked about that. We had talked about that with Representative Okimoto and as well as others, and shared the concerns of letting some of these inmates out of prison at a time when the prisons were virus free. So why would you take the prisoners out of the facilities and put them into the population with the community where it wasn't virus free? So it really didn't make any sense. They used the reason of COVID-19, that in the event the virus got into the prisons, that we would have some problems. So this was a preventative measure, and obviously a lot of people were concerned about that. Well, I received a call from Carrie and Shirota, or a message on Facebook, asking if we would be willing to pose the opposing side of our discussion, meaning the 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 discussion of how the early release of inmates can be a positive thing. But and we're going to get into this very shortly. They're going to be coming on in a few minutes. But I think I wanted for our viewers is, we talked about a bunch of public defenders filing motions to the court to release these prisoners. Boom, because of COVID-19. That's what had occurred. What Carrie Ann was talking about as far as the reentry of inmates into the community is a structured program, or structured programs, where inmates that are inside enter into programs that get them ready for the release, whatever it may be. And we're going to learn about that tonight. But my point is that this is not what was happening, right? It was not the early release, or the early release program that the COVID-19 pandemic brought about. Was simply public defenders wanting to let their clients out early. And they had no preparation. They had no structured programs. It was a list that went to the court, and it was a list that was reviewed by the judges, and a determination was made. So tonight, what we'll be talking about, and we have Carrie and Shirota, and I'll introduce them once they come on, along with Margot Sneed and Jeff Nash.
Nash.
And again, I'll introduce them when they come in, which I'm going to let them in a bit. They're going to talk about the successes of programs that basically paved the way for reentry for inmates that have been in prison for quite some time. So I know you're familiar with a lot of those programs, Charlie, as I am, and I think it's going to be an interesting discussion tonight.
Well, I think, for the viewers, the topic at hand is reintegration of back into society. And I believe wholeheartedly, those who have a sentence that is lengthy, any time served behind bars is considered lengthy, but that you have to get them really reacclimated, get them on a good footing, what they went in for, it doesn't reoccur. That's the bottom line. But I think with this COVID program, it, like you said, it was just totally different. It had nothing to do with um, looking at programs to get them back into society. It was like, we want to reduce the population so we don't have a COVID problem. Well, we never had the COVID problem to begin with in the beginning. So I don't, because what's funny is hospitals, right? We prepared the hospitals in case we had a COVID problem, right? We didn't move patients out to make room in case we got overrun by COVID patients. We didn't do that. We just worked with the system and got the hospitals ready. And that would have been, my 2 cents, that would have been a better approach, because being behind walls in a sterile environment would have been the best thing, would have been the best thing.
Yeah, and I think that was the focus of our discussion was, utilizing the COVID as a reason to deal with the overpopulation of our prisons. The opportunity came, and these guys said, "Hey, now is a good time. We can use the COVID issue because you cannot use the safety of the inmates, as the inmates were in a pretty much in a sterile environment." So, but whatever the case, I support these reintegration reentry programs that the jails have are using, that the different nonprofits are using, where they can teach vocational training or get them
Yes.
in some kind of educational programs at the community colleges, whatever the case may be. But when you get these guys ready to come out and re-enter, and if you do it properly, the chance of them re-offending drops significantly. I mean, that's so it's absolutely a positive thing. So we'll go ahead and bring them in.
Okay.
They're all on time too. I love it when they come in on time. Here we go. Boom. We're gonna bring them in
I
one
like to say
time.
thank you to all that's joining us right now. I see we also have Representative Okimoto on with us tonight, and she was passionate about that as well. So we'd like to welcome her as well.
All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us. Gosh, we got everybody on. I so appreciate when our guests come on time. That just makes it so much more makes it so much more fun. Sometimes we got to go track them down and send Zoom links, and I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to do a real quick introduction of our guests, and then we'll get right into the discussion. Again, thank you all. Carrie and Shirota, you can raise your hand, Carrie.
Aloha.
There we go. Carrie's a system. I'm going to just read these bios because I don't want to mess it up. Carrie Ann Shirota is a systems thinker who believes that transforming our criminal legal system makes fiscal sense and builds safe and healthy communities. Born and raised on Maui, Carrie Ann is a proud graduate of Baldwin High School, Santa Clara University in California, and the William S. Richardson School of Law at UH Manoa. Lawyer. Are you the first lawyer we've had on? Uh,
Oh,
oh no, we've had our prosecutor.
yes,
Yeah.
Justin. Yes.
Um, you might be on the second. Okay. Anyway, you currently work as a civil rights attorney for the state. Previously served as a director for Maui Economic Opportunities Best Reintegration Program that provides comprehensive reentry services for returning community members exiting our jails and prisons. He also worked with the Office of the Public Defender, Parents and Children Together, as a faculty counselor and lecturer at the University of Hawaii Maui College. Welcome, Carrie Ann. Thank you so much for reaching out. And we're excited. We had a little discussion before we got on, and we're actually looking forward to this discussion. Margot Sneed, Maui Program Director for Parents and Children Together. Margot oversees a dynamic team at the Family Peace Center and who offers domestic violence intervention programs serving adult survivors, offenders, and children exposed to domestic violence both in community and at Maui Community Correctional Center. FPC, again, Family Peace Center staff also advocate in court for individuals who are in need of a restraining order. She also oversees family strengthening programs to address child abuse and Lanai integrated support systems. She also oversees this lady, my gosh, busy. She also oversees the program contract with through Susanna Wesley to work with victims of sex trafficking. Margot has been with PACT, again, parents and children together for 10 years. Margot moved to Maui in 2003 after retiring from HPD, where she spent 12 years investigating violent crimes. Wow. I'm retired Cape Kauai Police, and Charlie has a former police officer and retired with Maui Police Department. Adult investigating violent crimes, adult and child sex crimes, and was a crisis negotiator, member of the critical incident response team, and lieutenant watch commander in Cleve for the last 6 years of her police career. She also had the opportunity to organize and implement the Crime Stoppers program, community area of responsibility schedule program, and the Maui Police Mounted Unit. You rode horses?
Oh, I love them.
That's cool. After moving to Maui, she worked at the Kalama School as a school safety manager, supervisor for Maui Economic Opportunities Best Program Project Protect, providing education, transitional services, and advocacy for persons reintegrating back into the community from Maui Community Correctional Center. In addition, she has taught sociology, interdisciplinary studies to the students at UHMC, both at the college and in the MCCC, which is a correctional custody facility. She's been recognized in the past as the Elks Citizen of the Year, International Crime Stoppers Coordinator of the Year, City and County Honolulu Project of the Year. Welcome, Margot. Woo! And Jeff Nash. Just this doesn't even look like you on the picture, but what the heck? Jeff is a former street addict who overcame the vicious cycle of crime, incarceration, and addiction. Since 1986, Mr. Nash has taken on many roles at Habilitat, one of the nation's top treatment centers. Trained by Habilitat's founders, Vinny and Vicky Marino, he spent 16 years as the facility director. In February of 2016, he took on the role of executive director. He has traveled around the globe learning evidence-based techniques, which he incorporates into Habilitat's extensive programs. Convicted of 9 felonies, Jeff rose from the depths of addiction and has spent the last 25 years helping others successfully re-enter society after incarceration. Jeff says, quote, "One of the accomplishments I'm most proud of is that 100% of Habilitat graduates are gainfully employed, earning a living wage, and in stable housing upon completion of the program." Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Carrie Ann, and thank you, Margot. Appreciate you guys taking the time. Again, I'm Mel Raposo. That's Charlie Iona with the headphones on.
Yes. Hello, hello, hello.
And we chatted a little bit before you all came on. The discussion really arose when the state worked on a prisoner release program that kind of got the communities concerned, including myself and Charlie and many others. And I was explaining before you all came on was that, you know, I think the reintegration or reentry programs that you folks are going to be talking about definitely work and definitely are needed. But what we saw with the prison release program during COVID was inmates that had not gone through any type of reentry training or reentry programs. It was simply public defenders got their lists to the court, to the judges. Judges made the determination whether or not this would be a good thing, and some got released. A lot of them did, and some didn't. But not in the way that what I've been reading and researching of what you all are doing, where it's your programs are structured. You're getting inmates ready, basically setting them up to succeed once they leave prison or a facility. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Carrie Ann, and you'll take it from here and share, and you'll control it from here, and I will just be back and listening. And then we'll take the questions and comments that are coming from the field, from the viewers, and we'll pose that to you as they come up. And for all of you that are watching, now is the time to hit the share button and start a watch party so we can, this is going to be some information that everybody needs to hear. So please do that right now. And with that, Carrie Ann, floor is yours.
Okay, aloha. Thank you so much for inviting us to your show, or we kind of invited ourselves maybe a little bit. and to the viewers. This really is a conversation for all of us to have about solutions. We hear so often that our criminal justice, our correction system is broken, and there's always room for improvement in any system. But if we look at our current existing criminal justice correction system, we have a recidivism rate of anywhere between 45 to 60+% people re-entering back into the system. That could be rearrests or maybe revocation under parole or probation. There is this vicious cycle. And we know, based upon our life experience, the work that we've done, that we can do better, and that we are continuing to invest in a system that produces these outcomes that doesn't build a safer community. The other thing I want to share with all of you and our viewers is that how much we spend. We spend almost $200 a day to incarcerate an adult, and that translates to about over $70,000 a year. If we contrast that to how much we spend to educate a child in our public schools, we spend about maybe $20,000 to educate a child. But if we were to have 50 to 60% of all of our students failing in our public schools, there would be outrage. The community would say, well, what's happening in our schools? Are there quality teachers? Do they have the resources they need to succeed? Parents would be getting more involved. Legislators would get more involved. They wouldn't just say, well, building another school will make things better. They'll start looking at structurally what is happening and why are people not getting the opportunities for rehabilitation while they're incarcerated and also as they transition out into the community. And so I think today we want to focus on solutions and success stories, and we want to dialogue. We definitely want to take the questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff, and then we'll get back to the MEO BEST program. But I want to hear from Jeff because this Habilitat program is very successful. It's still continuing, and I definitely want him to share with everyone what they're doing and how it succeeds.
Okay, thank you. So Habilitat was founded here in Hawaii in 1971 by a guy named Vinnie Marino, who came to Hawaii. He was also a former addict, and he came here to work for another program, and the program basically fell apart, and he started his own. Probably the older generations will remember how gregarious he was and outspoken, and he made a ruckus or whatever. But the reality is his concept continues to live to this day. And his concept, in my opinion, was very forward thinking. He always felt that the 30-day treatment program model was just not enough to address people who had lifelong issues with crime and substance use. So unfortunately, he passed away back in 2000, but the program and his concepts have continued, and we're still doing the same work today. In fact, we've evolved, obviously, since that time, incorporated lots of evidence-based techniques, and we've basically taken what was already a really good concept and brought it into the modern age. Currently, we have about 100 participants in our program. They live on our property in Kaneohe. Most of them come through the court systems in lieu of incarceration from here in Hawaii. Most of the people that come to us have been through numerous other short-term programs. The vast majority were homeless before coming to us, and some of them have been incarcerated multiple times. Basically what we do is we bring them into the program, and the program is hard, it's tough, it's challenging, and we certainly make no apologies for that. We're dealing with a tough crowd, but basically what we do is we bring people into the program and we put them through a multi-phased program that's, the first part of the program is addiction treatment or substance use treatment, and that's about 6 months of residential treatment that's merit-based. Once they become stable and learn some coping skills and get past the whole, drug issue or whatever, and become stable, they go into what we call reentry. We have a phase of our program, it's called reentry. And in reentry, that's where we start to begin the programming for reentering society. Our reentry program is about an 18-month to 24-month live-in experience. And they're taught marketable skills. If they don't have a high school education, they're going to be put into classes. If they have children, they're going to go into parenting classes. We're going to teach them a vocation that translates into a living wage. And basically what's happened is Habilitat has become this recovery community, where not only do they get the addiction treatment, but we bring in every other type of service to bear all in one place. Carrie Ann had mentioned about the recidivism rates in Hawaii. Ironically, the Habilitat success is exactly the opposite. About 63-64% of the people who complete our program are, they go on to have pretty normal lives. They get out of the system, get off their probation, become employees. Some of them open their own companies. They take care of their families. And we do a 5-year follow-up study. And currently the follow-up studies show that after 5 years, about 63-64% of the people that completed the program have not had any more rearrest. So there's no recidivating. They're gainfully employed. They're in stable housing and no illicit substance use. For us, that's the measure of success, those criteria. Habilitat is a licensed treatment center. We are regulated by the state of Hawaii, ADAD, Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division of the Health Department here. And I believe you guys are in Kauai, right? So we actually work with the Kauai Drug Court, the Hawaii Probation Department over there. We have people from all the different islands. And we're one of 2 programs in the state that is considered a long-term program. So that's basically what Habilitat is. We've been around for nearly 50 years. We have, great success for certain types of people. I certainly don't want to sit here and pretend that Habilitat is the only, the only viable option, but it's certainly one that's tried and true. I think one of the unique things about Habilitat is we don't have any contracts with the government. The taxpayers are not funding our program. Actually, the vocational programs that we've developed allow somebody to come in and be taught by professionals, licensed professionals in a particular trade, gain enough skills while they're there, and they actually help earn their way through the treatment program. So if you look at the numbers that Carrie Ann was mentioning, right now, currently it's $198 to incarcerate someone per day, per person, and Habilitat can treat 3 people for that same amount of money. So it cost us about $66 per day per person. And, but obviously there's a huge difference. Habilitat is not incarceration. It's very structured, it's very supervised, but the whole place is run by people like me, former prisoners, former felons, and those of us that have gotten out of it and gone on, gotten more education and become stable in life and become an asset to our community. So it's quite a bit different than a prison experience. They're not locked up. They're all there voluntarily. However, in most cases, they are there because the system, and when I say the system, the judicial system as a whole, the judge, the prosecutor, a public defender or a lawyer, a probation officer, and of course the individual along with the program has conspired to try and help these people develop the skill set necessary to rise out of the cycle of crime and incarceration and so forth. So we have 100 people in our program at any given time. We actually are licensed for more, but we try to keep it around 100 for quality purposes. And obviously that's saving the state of Hawaii taxpayers an awful lot of money. The program is not easy. I think I've said that before. It is challenging by design. Some people would rather go do their time in jail than have to come to Habilitat because it's challenging. It's very strict. We don't put up with a lot of crap. We're dealing with a tough crowd, and we take a tough approach to it. But we have, I've been there nearly 25 years, 24, 25 years. And, the program and the judicial system, this was back in the 90s. They really worked together to try and keep me from having to be incarcerated for a very long time. Now, I think it's in the spirit of disclosure here, I didn't have any violent crimes. I was a heroin addict, and most of my crimes had to do with supporting that habit. In fact, most of them were actually drug offenses. So I was a good candidate, but what the 20-something years that I've been at Habilitat, I've seen some of Hawaii's tough cases, people that, that you saw on the news come through our program, and we've been able to turn them around. Now, it certainly doesn't work for everybody. Never claimed that it did. But when the judiciary conspire to leverage the incarceration and the court cases to force people into treatment, oftentimes it does work. And there's a lot of differing opinions about that. A lot of people say, well, court leverage, forced treatment doesn't work. Well, I can tell you right now that that was the case with me, and I've been clean now 24 years. I'm a homeowner. I pay for sure my fair share of taxes in the state of Hawaii. And, I've spent my whole life trying to help other people as well, my whole adult life. So to say that court leverage treatment doesn't work, maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it certainly worked for me. Now, there are, I think, some caveats here that, Habilitat doesn't accept Class A felons. We don't accept murderers, rapists, child sex offenders, things like that. But we have taken on, some of these guys that you see on the television, on the news all the time that are, repeat offenders, and, they've stolen cars and they keep getting put in and let out and whatever. And eventually somebody, basically a judge usually tells them, look, you can go to Habilitat and either succeed at that, or we're going to send you to prison for 20 years or whatever it is. And typically those people come to us and they do fairly well. One of the things that I think is important to mention here is that throughout all these years I've been there, I've never met somebody that came to Habilitat that didn't bring with them childhood trauma. So one of the things that we've noticed through the years is that most people that end up in these situations, especially where severe substance abuse is a part in this, is that there is some kind of trauma that has never been addressed. So, I think it's important to tell you this as well, is that, this thing that happened with the release of the prisoners, I'll be honest with you, when I heard about that, I was concerned. I was concerned not because I thought those people should stay in there if there was COVID and too bad for them, but I was concerned because I know that if you take people and you don't provide them with skill building opportunities, if you don't address those traumas, if you don't try to help them overcome some of that stuff, then they're going to keep recidivating. They're going to keep using drugs, and the crime goes along with the drug use. They're part and parcel, part of the same package. So when I heard about that, I thought, wow, we really need to do something about this. So we did reach out to both the city and county and the state, and anybody that would listen, to say, look, we're willing to take some of these people if they're willing to come here and subject themselves to our treatment and learn from us. We're willing to take them. So since COVID started, we brought in 15 people that would have been released anyway, and all but one of them is still with us, and they're adjusting and they're doing well at this point. So, I think my thing with this whole thing is, and the point that I really want to make, and I felt this way for a long time, I understand that we need to protect our community, and I'm all for protecting our community. Dangerous people, we can't just let them wreak havoc on our community. However, the vast majority of people that get locked up in Hawaii, they need help. And if, the reality is the way the system works in Hawaii, or actually around the nation, is we put these people in jail, they're going to stay there for a few years, and then they're going to get out. And the question that I have is, if we're going to put them in jail and then we're going to let them out, because that's the way the system works, what are we doing between, the time that we incarcerate them and the time that we let them out to ensure that they're not going to go and reoffend and, wreak havoc on our community? And what I've seen through the years, and, I don't want to, I'm not trying to knock anybody's efforts here or whatever, but what I've seen is that the programming that goes on is inferior. It's not enough. It is not getting the results. Look, if we at Habilitat were getting the kind of results from this type of programming that they get in prison, we would shut the place down because it would be pointless. But the reality is we do get results, and that's why we keep doing it, and that's why we keep trying to help people. And Carrie Ann mentioned about success, success stories. I can tell you hundreds of stories that I've been involved with. We have somebody who went to medical school and is now a doctor in Honolulu, several CPAs, more nurses that are working in the hospitals in Honolulu than I can count. Real estate moguls. We have one that's a diamond broker. Mechanics, business owners, they're everywhere. You wouldn't know it because, these things happened a long time ago with them, but they're people in our community that are stand-up citizens and well-known in the community, but people don't know that they went to Abilitat because, well, that's confidential, obviously. But programs like Abilitat do definitely save people's lives. So, that's kind of my spiel for now. I could go on and on probably for the next hour, but I will shut up and pass the mic to someone else.
Okay, well,
Thanks,
maybe
Jeff.
I can jump here. Thank you, Jeff. I want to share a little bit about MEO Best Reintegration Program. So MEO stands for Maui Economic Opportunity. It is a community action program. There are other equivalent programs on each island. It is meant to address poverty in the community. And as we know, many people who end up in our criminal justice system are poor. Many people may be detained because they can't post bail. And that was a number of individuals who were released. They were pretrial detention. That aside, I think the MEO Best Reintegration Program was founded by Gladys Baisa, and she's probably viewing in right now. She was the director of MEO for decades. I can't remember the exact number. And she was also a county council Maui for Maui. And it was her brainchild to create a program because they kept seeing that there were individuals leaving MCCC that would come to MEO for assistance, and they could provide some piecemeal support, maybe some assistance to buy some tools, or maybe try to refer them to job assistance, but there wasn't a comprehensive reentry program that existed. So in Gladys's brilliance, she brought together all of these partners and stakeholders. She invited the warden from MCCC, the chief of security, the head of corrections supervision. She invited parole, probation, judiciary, all of these community stakeholders, other nonprofit groups, and came together and they brainstormed and said, well, what would a comprehensive reentry program look like? What do people need to be successful? That it's individualized, but they're knowing that there are certain things that propel people into the system, and what do they need to transform their lives? So that being said, BEST came to life. It stands for Being Empowered and Safe Together. And the mindset, the mantra has always been, how can we build a safer, healthier, beloved community? And I just want to remind, all of the viewers here, when we talk about people, quote, who are inside, or we use terms like inmates and prisoners, what we're really talking about is people. We're talking about, our loved ones. We're talking about mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandchildren, our neighbors, our classmates. Even if we were to take a poll, all of us here on this panel and the viewers, how many of us know someone who has been through the system, into jail or to prison? It affects our entire community. So if we keep on sort of looking at it as them versus us, and we just, throw them in jail, we lock them up, throw away the key, that is a failure to recognize that 97% of the people who are in our jails and prisons will return to the community. So Gladys, again, and all these stakeholders apply for a federal grant. It was from the Department of Justice and other federal funded programs. And the target population, which is really interesting, is that it was to serve individuals convicted of Class A and other Class A and Class B felonies, which are considered the most serious of convictions. So when we looked at that demographic population, most of the participants in our program were men. Eventually, we applied for other grants, and then we served individuals with Class C felonies, which 74% of all the men and women in our system have either Class C or lower, misdemeanors, petty misdemeanors. But we served Class A and Class B felonies, including people that may have been convicted, of a past murder, of sex offense charges, because again, there was this recognition that people do harm, but we know also that they're still human beings, and what can we do to provide people with the support so that they reconnect with their family, they reconnect with their community, and really give back and contribute as citizens, as family members. So with that in mind, we provided employment training services. We established relationships with what we called second chance employers. the unions came in. We had what we call job fairs. We had all of these employers who would hire people that may have had a conviction record. We brought in the University of Hawaii Maui College, adult education. A number of individuals ended up getting their GED, going on to college. As Jeff mentioned, we've had some students get their associates, even bachelor's degrees. Some of them now are substance abuse counselors. One is in medical school. We had a number of men and women who then worked for MEO in other programs. And an example of this, of how success and how life comes full circle, is there was in particular, a male and female in our program that was very successful. They became drivers for MEO's transportation program. So they assisted kupuna or even others on dialysis. And my dad was a dialysis patient. So later in, some years after I left the program, here were participants who came to our home to pick up my dad to take him to dialysis. And they were just so loving and compassionate. And again, it just shows that how we all are interconnected. We also provided cognitive skills training, behavioral change for people to start thinking about, different responses, maybe triggers from their childhood or from abuse. And I would like to say, we saw time and time again, the majority of men and women in our program experienced abuse as childhood. There could be physical abuse, sexual abuse, both. Maybe they had parents who were incarcerated themselves. And this is not to say that we can excuse people, because we know not everybody who's abused may hurt someone else. But it helps us to understand that we need to address those issues in order for people to individually heal, also with their families and our community. We did not provide directly substance abuse treatment or mental health services, but we partnered with Aloha House, which provides substance abuse treatment, mental health kukua. We partnered with other state agencies. We had a really strong family reunification component because we understand that for every person coming home, they're usually connected to Ohana community, often multi-generational. So when we had family reunification events, it could be something as small as a parent, and I can see in my mind, one of the men in our program, one day after work furlough on a pass, sitting down and doing homework with his daughter, helping her with her schoolwork, up to large events where we had hundreds of people, families come together with our staff. And we would often have, sometimes we'd have correctional officers with us because where people were at different levels. Some were on work furlough, still under the custody of PSD. We had individuals who were on parole or probation and those who had either maxed out or had finished their time. But throughout all of this, we always kept our partners at the table. So we would meet monthly with the warden, corrections supervisor, parole, probation, judiciary. Every time we pitched new services or expanding, we would talk to them and brainstorm. Now, we didn't always agree, but we had a mutual respect. We understood that we wanted to do things better for our community. We also had a cultural renewal program. We had 2 kumuhula that went in, Olani Smith and Deborah Kamali'i. They've since passed away, but they went and taught halau to both the Kane and Wahine. And as people were transitioning home, they could join the hula halau. We did a lot of community service projects where we would do forest restoration to plant koa seedlings. We would also restore lo'i, Honokowai Valley with Uncle Ed Lindsay Kupuna, very revered in our community. And he always used this metaphor that, planting seeds is like raising your family, right? If you plant seeds of goodness, if you give people hope, if you encourage them to succeed, you're going to see the fruits of your labor. So there was always this emphasis of how do we give back? We partnered with Habitat for Humanity. So some of the participants in our program helped to build a home for other Hawaiian families in Waihuko, Hawaiian homelands. And these are the kinds of things that if you give people meaningful opportunities to change and to change their life and to give back, they are jumping at the opportunity to do so. And there are some other things as well, but I want to sort of turn it over, so I'm not the only one talking, from Margot, because Margot led our mentor program, which she can speak to. And she also worked on our Protect program, which was a pretrial diversion for women. So I want to turn it over to Margot.
Thank you. Yeah, when I first retired from the police department, I worked at Kalama School. And as a school safety manager, I had all kinds of kids that would come in the room that were in trouble, that kicked out of the classroom, they were doing all kinds of things. And when I got the job with MEO, we had this, my very first day, they had a thing called Naleo Pu'uwai, which was the stories of the different inmates that they did at the MAC, Maui Arts and Cultural Center. And I remember listening to those stories, and it was interesting because my police hat was on, and I could just think of all the crimes that they committed and, you know, the things that they did. And here they were telling their stories about their history and their life and all the trauma and abuse that them and their siblings or their families generationally had gone through. And I just sat there and went, wow, you know, like, you know that when you're responding to cases as a cop, but when you're right there in front of somebody and they're uploading their whole life to the community and really sharing what happened to them so that people could understand, you know, that they really are trying to make a change in their life. They don't want to be like that. They didn't ask to be like that. They didn't ask to have that happen to them. And the things that they did, they don't feel good about it anymore. You know, they don't feel good that they did those things. Well, after that Naleo Pu'uwai, we went outside to go clean up. And the children of these inmates had, some of them were allowed to come and see their, you know, parents. And when I saw them embrace each other and I looked at the kids, I was like, oh my gosh, those are my kids at Kalama School. And then it just like really hit me. I was like, this generational violence has got to stop. We have to do something. This is why we need these programs. It's for the keiki. We don't want our kids to grow up and have the same problems from generation to generation. So when I first went to MEO, I had a lot to learn because, like I said, I spent 25 years as a police officer, and that's what I knew. And working with the Best Reintegration Program as a mentor coordinator, I really learned that these people needed support. They needed community support. They needed role models, people that really care to teach them other ways of living, other ways of thinking about their interactions with other people and their own self-esteem and believing in themselves that they can be something different. Because I think all of them were so affected by the things that happened to them that they really didn't know any other way of being in many cases. So we hooked them up, the mentors up, and they would meet with the inmates in the jail, and then the relationship would continue once they were released. I did that for a few months, and then there was a Project Protect that was opened up. It was called Promoting Reentry Opportunities Through Effective Community Transitions. And it was a pretrial program for women. And what we would do is we would have classes for the women Monday through Friday. And instead of me telling the women what they needed, I investigated and asked, how can we help you? What do you need to learn? Where did you come from? What do you know? What do you need to know when you get out? Because it was a learning process for me too. You know, I didn't know all that they needed. So I was able to get all different people from the community to come in, and we did domestic violence classes. We did literacy. We did, we referred for substance abuse. We did college classes eventually. You know, we did financial literacy, taught them how to use computers, you know, and how to get on the internet. Most of them didn't have a clue about computers. You know, we were able to bring in computers into the dorm 4-5, which is the dorm that they're in, lower level crimes for women. And they had Word and Excel, and I was able to teach them how to use those because you need those skills when you get out. So you can write a resume. We helped them do the resumes. And in these classes from college, it was so amazing to see these people that had absolutely no self-esteem in believing that they could go to college and believe in themselves. They were actually writing these amazing stories, these amazing work. based on the classwork that I gave them. And, you know, it really made me feel so incredible when some of them were released and became the student body president and now works at Maui Community Correctional Center. Others did long distance learning from Molokai when they were released. And most recently, just a couple of years ago, there was one lady that she was in jail because she had burglarized her uncle's place, and she did her time. But when she was sentenced, she had been sexually abused by her uncle. So I was able to get her into Malama Family Recovery Center, released pre-trial before her sentencing. And it was just amazing that the judge let her complete that sexual abuse training. And then after she was sentenced, spent her years in jail for that burglary, she was in my sociology class outside in the community. Another lady that was in my classes, the public defender warned me. She was crazy. She was like a cat with claws. I'll never forget the public defender telling me she was a tough case. She was a drug addict. She was just very difficult. And we went into the job fair at MEO, and she said, "Will you come sit with me?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll come sit with you." So I sat with her during the interview, and she was scared. She was petrified. She'd never been through an interview in her life. She didn't know anything about working the job, you know? And Safeway hired her, and she was so ecstatic. And she has worked herself all the way up from just an entry level Safeway to manager. You know, there's just so many success stories. If we give people the opportunity, we can stop that generational revolving door of having families. I've had, it's so tragic. I have had mother and daughter both in the same classroom with me in the jail, both mother and daughter. And you're thinking, wow, mom's got a master's degree, daughter's got a bachelor's degree. They're both educated people. What went wrong here? You know? And sometimes it isn't people that necessarily come out of poverty. It can be people that make bad choices, people that get really heavily involved with drugs. It's that whole spectrum. But they need the opportunity to have somebody believe in them that they can change. In fact, that one woman, one day when we did, remember, Carrie Ann, when we did that cultural thing at the Kihei Canoe Club with the fish ponds? Oh my gosh, we were walking through the fish ponds, and she turned to me. This girl is gorgeous, like just a beautiful Hapa Hawaiian girl. She turned to me, she goes, "Margot, do I look like a prisoner?" And I was like, "Oh my God, no, you don't look like a prisoner. Of course not, you're beautiful. You know, look at all the things, all the changes you're making in your life. You know, you have a plan, you're moving forward, you're doing good things now. You've decided to make a difference. You don't look like a prisoner to me." But we all have to do that. We have to not judge people by where they came from and what their mistakes are, and really believe that people can change. You know, what is MEO's motto? Helping people, changing lives. All of us have to have a hand in that. I mean, from the time I was a police officer, when I interviewed guys that were arrested for whatever, whether it was sex crimes or whether it was domestic violence or burglaries or whatever it was, when I got into that interview room with them, not only was I trying to get their statement and find out exactly what happened, but I was also trying to figure out what made them do this. You know, where did they come from? Why would somebody do these things? And I think that's what we don't look at, is that many people have really, really tragic backgrounds. In my work with the domestic violence intervention at PACT, the group work is amazing because these guys all hold each other accountable. They tell their stories. They learn where their thinking processes are not okay, that they need to do things differently, learn new skills, new behaviors. And they cry in these sessions because they feel bad about what they did to their families, to their children, to the community. when they do finally come to that realization, that when that click happens, it is amazing. And then you know that as long as they've got the resources and the programs and the structure and, you know, the community to help them out, they're gonna make that change and they're gonna be successful. But all of us have to have a hand in that. You can't just kick them out the door and expect them to know what to do or where to go or how to be any different. I've had women that I've actually taken out that were so frightened about going back into the community because they were now sober and been in my classes for months. That by the time I got them into the shelter and into where they were going to do their drug treatment, they were just crying hysterically and begging me to take them back to the jail because they just didn't believe that they could do it. They were so scared of like all those unknowns of never having been really sober. How do I make it? Anyway, I know I could go on with the stories, but I don't want to just keep talking.
You know, and again, I thank you all. I think, you know, some amazing opportunities available. You know, and I know a lot of the people are commenting, saying, "Wow, it sounds like they got it together on Maui. What about Kauai? You know, we got to find out what's available for Kauai." And I know Kauai, we do have some programs, and they're very successful as well. But you know, when we talk about the COVID-19 police, you know, these prisoners didn't go through any of your programs. You know,
we do. We do.
No, when they did the prison release program,
Oh,
they were basically, like I said earlier, you know, public defenders got their clients on a letter and they sent it over and would file a motion to early release. Some may have been in some sort of reentry program. And I'm speaking for Kauai. I have no idea what they've done on Maui. And as one person said, here on Kauai, they drop you off in a white paper suit, no money, no place to go, and you're on your own. And in fact, the COVID-19, which was the most disturbing part for me as a former police officer, as a very compassionate guy, Charlie as well, we're both very compassionate. In fact, I'm the president of the Friends of Kauai Drug Court. And I'm glad I got to meet you, Jeff, because we will have discussions going forward.
Sure.
Drug Court's a heck of a program that has seen amazing results because we force them into the structure.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found out that people were being released during COVID and their attorneys, the public defenders took them up to the court, judge looked at it, said, "Hey, you know what? You're free to go. No place of residence, no job, no money. And how do we expect these guys to survive on the street with nowhere to go?" And again, you know, it's two different discussions we're having. I think your discussions are programs that are needed on every single island. I'm hearing the pleas from our viewers that we'll track down the Kauai programs and bring them on as well. But
Mel?
let me see. I know I've written some.
Mel, as you're
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna add there because I do think, right, there was a number of individuals who were released. Some went through programs, some of them didn't have anything, literally like a trash bag. And that happens on every island. It's not just Kauai. But I think why we're here tonight is to say that these types of programs can be expanded and can be scaled up, right? Every year, the state spends over $226 million a year on incarceration. $226 million a year. I mean, you heard from Jeff saying how you can help 3 people for how much it costs to incarcerate a person. So I think going back to that is that since we all are unanimously here, I don't think anybody in the community says, "Oh, we don't want to, people shouldn't exit." Like we want people to have housing. We want them to have reentry support. That's kind of a unanimous consensus from the state legislators to the prosecutors to the judiciary but this is also a challenge and an opportunity to the community because we do have funding, but we continue to put it into incarceration. We make a public policy decision. And I understand, Mel, that you're a former county council member, right? So at least on Maui, there's some monies that the county has given for MEO BEST program. There's been monies from the state, the federal. MEO BEST program doesn't have as much funding as in the past. So the number of services have scaled down. They are ramping up. They've vigorously been applying for grants to expand again. But again, it's like we put all this money into incarceration. How can we divert some of that? One, to divert people to go into the system in the first place. And then second, once they're in though, provide the rehabilitation opportunities and then the support when they come out. And I can just tell you, I'm a part of this volunteer group on Oahu called Emergency Reentry Project. So when we heard that individuals would be released with or without a verifiable residence, we gathered and said, what can we do as community stakeholders to try to assist people? And it literally has been piecemeal. I mean, just this morning, I got a call from someone saying, this person, we have them in a recovery home, which is a blessing. They're called the House of Blessings on Oahu. But this individual did not have assistance to apply for healthcare. He'd been released, diabetic, high blood pressure, severe high numbers. So when I heard the situation, I thought this guy could potentially, this could be a fatal situation. I contacted someone at Department of Human Services who assists with MedQuest, and she was able in 5 minutes to talk to him, get information, and apply for MedQuest for him so that he could go and get medical care and have coverage and get his medication. So things are happening piecemeal, but we can do better. And so, you know, I really challenge like all of us, both you, Charlie, all the viewers, is that we need to advocate to our legislators, our county council members to say like, let's look at how we're spending money. Let's put more money into diversion programs. Let's put more money into rehabilitation because we're going to get better results. Jeff talked about 64% success rates, right, through Habilitat. MEO BEST program was studied by a third-party evaluator, Dr. Marilyn Brown from UH Hilo. She is a criminologist. Now, these were preliminary when I was there. This is some years ago. We were working again with individuals, Class A, Class B felonies, and eventually Class C. But when she did the study and looked at Class A and Class B recidivism, it was less than 15%. Less than 15%. And I know we did not spend $197 a day. That was definitely, we didn't spend that much money, right? And so it's like, I always think to my parents and saying like, you know, we're putting our money into a response to crime that is not effective and really is coming out from all of our taxpayers. Why do we keep funding the very thing that doesn't work? Let's invest in what works. So that is really a challenge, I think, for all of us. You mentioned drug court, and thank you for being a part of that. You know, if you think about it, I don't know about Kauai, but on Maui, there's often a wait list to get into drug court. And at least on Maui, if you have like a serious violent charge, Class A, Class B, usually you don't qualify. So we definitely need to expand it, but there's a wait list to get into drug court, but there's no wait list to get into our jails and prisons. We make it so easy to just sort of like say, okay, this happens, you go to jail or prison. It should be the actual last, really the last resort whatsoever. Because I really believe that with community prevention and these kinds of programs, we can serve the community better. And I would like to share a personal story because sometimes, you know, when I talk to people in the community, people are willing to listen, but sometimes I get this question like, well, how would you know? You know, have you ever been subjected to crime or violence? And I have. You know, I have been subjected to domestic violence and other crime, but I also choose to believe that people can change. And within my family, I grew up in believing that people can change in redemption. When I was 6 years old on Maui, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, was murdered. No one was ever arrested. No one was ever convicted. Till this day, it's considered an unsolved murder. And ironically, my uncle was formerly a police officer. I was 6 years old, and I remember my grandmother, someone was talking to her, and they said a comment like, you know, whoever did this, my uncle's name was Jerry, whoever did this to Jerry should get the death penalty. And my grandmother, who was a person of faith, said that that wouldn't bring back her son. And she also said, whoever did this to him is somebody's child too. And so for me, it really is about restorative justice. It's about people holding them accountable for harm that they do to themselves, their family, the community, but giving opportunities to restore and repair relationships. Because as we know it, sometimes the quote victims might be the family members. And I've seen families, even in a situation where a family member was murdered, I've seen that family come together in Maui with mediation services and counseling, that family went through really reconciliation and healing, and they are still together today. And they did believe in their loved one's ability to change. So I think, again, you know, I just encourage everybody, 95, 97% people are going to come home. So let's collectively advocate for these kinds of programs. And the MEO Best Reintegration Program model can be replicated and scaled up. We really should have this kind of model where we reach into the jails and prisons while someone is incarcerated, typically 6 months to 1 year before they're released. And then as they transition, to have that, what we call seamless, coordinated system of support. And I think this is a great opportunity because there's been this unprecedented release of individuals, and there is still the court's mandate to keep the population below jail design, that to continue to fund the things that work instead of the things that fail us as a community.
Well,
So,
you know,
so
Go ahead.
I hear there's a catch-22 right here, because we need to keep the population down because of jail design. Yet at the same token, when we try to build jails to make it larger, you get a big pushback from the community. So you end up with something smaller. So, you know, you damn if you do, you damn if you don't. That's problem number one. Problem number two, and I asked the panel here, with everything you're asking, and I agree. Why does it seem, you know, it's almost like a security guard, right? A security guard at a hotel is always at the bottom of the ladder. But he's like an insurance policy that when the crap hits the fan, you call a security guard right away. What you're saying here is with our prison system as it is right now, and it needs to be improved. I heard on the opening statement that we're having, the system is broken. Why do you think, and I pose this to all the panelists tonight, why do you think it's falling on deaf ears? Because this is not the first time we've heard this. It's been coming year after year after year. And like COVID, if we flatten the curve, if we flatten crime, then we shouldn't have that many people going into the prisons. You know, it should, but that's just not how life is. We're always like, you know, depending on the background they come from, what they're gonna do, they'll get in there. And three, it sounds to me like the prisons before release, they're not actively working with the prospective candidates or prisoners. I know Oahu, they have Laumaka, right, Margot? They have Laumaka, the transition. I can tell you personally, I work for the medical examiner's office, and I used to do some cases with Bill Kato, Margot. And I used to go to Laumaka, and you know, we kind of wonder, you know, what the heck is going on over here? And they say, well, this is a transitional place. So I think something needs to be done. And maybe, you know, because you've got Representative Okimoto watching us right now. And you got several other people that's on the line. It sure sounds like, you know, Ways and Means got to be tapped into. You know, they're the ones that control the monies, but give them an adequate program of why we're going to get stuck with this problem, that when these people come out, if the transition doesn't start behind the walls, you know, don't wait until they're already outside of the walls, because for the small period of time, they're going to run amok, and they're going to get back in. So I think we got to start it early.
You have to work with, the thing is, it's not any one agency or any one program that's going to make it happen. You know, that's what was the beautiful thing about the Being Empowered and Save the Best program, is that we had parole, we had, you know, the public defenders, we had the Department of Health, we had all of these, I mean, all the major agencies and the nonprofits would work together to look at the different cases. And then before we would even suggest that someone would be released, we take it to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor would look at, where are they going to go for drug treatment? Do they have their identification? What's the plan? You know, do they need substance abuse treatment? Do they need mental health treatment? You know, what are the different things? What's the family situation like? Do you have family reunification? Has there been supervised visits with the kids? Has there been parenting? It's so complex. Like you said, if you just let somebody walk out the door with no safety net, no direction, you're setting them up to fail and to go right back inside. So you have to have the whole community of providers and agencies that will work together to make it successful. Has to be.
I'm sorry.
So
We're all wanting to. Go ahead.
years ago, this is something that I've noticed, and I would agree with you, Charlie. It is a catch-22. I feel very strongly that if you take for lack of a better word, a broken jail system, and then we're going to build a bigger one, we're going to have a bigger broken jail system. So in my opinion, we need to fix the system, then think about how do we transition into a better jail system, maybe a bigger jail system. However, what I've noticed in the last 20 years, when I was going through my stuff, they intervened early on. So I've got guys coming to Habilitat now that they've been in and out of jail and on probation, and they've been arrested 20 times. Years ago, they didn't wait until you've become a repeat offender before they start to force you in treatment. They did that after the first or second time, especially if there was drug use involved. So we have a system where we let them, the catch and release thing, and nobody's happy about that. I'm not happy about that either. But if we think, I think a lot of times the public thinks that we can just lock people up and that's going to solve the problem. And the reality is it doesn't. That's not the way that it works. You can't lock people up forever. That's not the way our legal system works. And the whole notion of, a drug-fueled crime spree being solved by incarcerating somebody, that's just, there's all kinds of studies that show that just incarcerating someone does not solve drug addiction issues. I think we can all agree that a lot of what we see in our community today is fueled by serious drug problems. So I think we have to address that issue. I think that the interventions need to be happening earlier. And I think if they happened earlier, we wouldn't be seeing so many people sent to prison for 5, 10, 20 years at a time, because we would have addressed these issues before they evolved into these big three-headed monsters. I was reading some of the comments. There's another problem we have in Hawaii in that there's not enough treatment. I was reading some of the comments on your feed, and people are saying, well, everybody's got a waiting list. Well, obviously that's a problem. You have to be high to get into treatment. Well, we've taken a very different approach. First of all, Habilitat has never had a waiting list. Our founder created a program that was scalable, so we can scale up, we can scale down to meet the needs. A lot of programs don't operate that way. Another thing is a lot of programs are geared towards third-party payments, so they're dependent on insurance payments. We don't play that game. You don't need insurance to get into Habilitat. In fact, if you come from Hawaii, you don't need anything except a sincere desire to change and a willingness to do what we're going to ask you to do to make those changes. So if you're from Hawaii, it's basically no cost treatment to you for the entire length of the program. So we need other options other than the status quo. If these programs, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if I had a huge demand for people at Habilitat, I would be looking to expand, and create a different facility where we can handle more people or whatever it may be. But I don't see that going on. What I see is that jail has become the de facto place for homelessness, for mental illness, for drug addiction. And by the way, those three things are not solved by incarceration, and the science backs all that up. There's plenty of studies. Those three things cannot be solved by incarceration. So the question becomes, well, what more do we do? One of the other things I've noticed is that, and I mentioned this earlier, is that the system is not always working well together, especially with the community partners. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people that are trying. There's some great people that are really trying to do things in all those different departments. So I'm not trying to knock their efforts, but I think we need a more comprehensive approach to assessing people when they first get arrested and figuring out where they fit, what services to bring to bear prior to them ended up in lengthy incarceration. So I've seen a shift in the way things happen, and this is, of course, just my observation. But I've seen a shift in the way the whole system works over the last 20 years. And I think what we have now is obviously, the catch-22 problem, Charlie, that you mentioned. What is the solution? Boy, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to jump in.
Please.
I've been waiting patiently. I'm like holding back here. So first of all, mahalo for that question, because I think that that's one of the things that comes up in every community. On Maui, there's been talk about building a new jail. On Hawaii Island, on Oahu for OCCC. And I think we have to be realistic, and I think we need to have honest conversations. And I think the first thing we need to talk about is evidence, right? We should be making public policies, passing laws that there's evidence to support public policies, right? So for example, if, for medical reason, we know that certain types of Plaquenil drug is not helpful for people with COVID, right? It's controversial, it hasn't been studied enough. There is a field of criminal justice that people study and look at. How do people decrease recidivism? What do they need to be successful? If you put money into diversion programs, early childhood education, community-based mental health, that you get, not only do you get better results, but that it costs far less money. But too often, legislators, government, public officials, they're in a position and then they're very reactive. My experience has been, and I testify quite a bit over the years at the state legislature and even before the county, that there's a 6 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news. There's a crime that occurs and it's often egregious. And understandably so, the community is concerned, people are afraid, but there is this reaction like, okay, well, you know what? Let's just lock them up, throw away the key, and that's the end of the story. But there's more to that story. If we were to take any poll on any given day of the week, if we look at our newspapers, our media, it always highlights people who committed crime, recidivism. My understanding that of the 800 something people who were released, and I don't have exact, but I remember I read the special master's report recently, at least I think on Oahu, there were about 47 or so. There was rearrest, either rearrest or probation revocation. So it's not new charges, but that's less than 8%. I think it was less than 8% recidivism, much lower than what the 50 to 60% is. But I think, again, there's this perception that if some legislators believe that if they say, okay, well, let's look at substance abuse treatment, let's look at reentry, that they're going to be, quote, labeled soft on crime, and that they want to be known as being tough on crime. But what we know through evidence-based research at the national level, local level, other countries for that matter, is that incarceration is the most expensive and the most least effective response to crime. So just as we use evidence to support whether we decide to put monies into different programs, we need to use that evidence to make decisions about our criminal justice system. And so I, encourage Representative Okimoto, anyone else who's, listening in, is that we need to have what we call smart justice, or what we call justice reinvestment. There's this organization called Justice Reinvestment, the Council of State Governments. They actually provide technical assistance to states that are interested in using criminal justice data to drive public policy decisions. They work as partners. They bring judiciary, public safety, parole, probation, all of the stakeholders together. And they've helped states to reduce inmate population, and also divert the money that's saved into programs and services that are community-based and are known to decrease crime. And I want to address this sort of myth. There is this myth in our community that if you lock up more people, that crime rates will decrease. And that is a myth. There is national data proven time and time again. And in particular, I want to highlight a few states. So New York, New Jersey, California. New York and New Jersey, within an 11-year span, and I have some numbers here, New Jersey decreased their population over 11 years by 8,000 people. New York decreased their population by almost 20,000 people in 11 years. California reduced their prison population by almost 40,000 people in 6 years. All of these states, these jurisdictions, simultaneously experienced decrease in crime rates. And in Hawaii, despite watching the news, if you look at the criminal justice data that comes out from the Attorney General's office every year, our crime rates, there's some ebb and flow, there's some peaks, but overall, over the last few years, our crime rates keep decreasing. So again, we're asking ourselves, we're putting all this money in, is it building a safer community? It's not. These other states have proven you can decrease the prison inmate population, you can save money, and you don't have to build new jails and prison. You can avert prison construction. And that's happened in some other states where they were planning for new jails and prison. They implemented what I call smart justice or justice reinvestment policies. They didn't need to build jails or prisons. And for Maui, I can speak to Maui specifically. Just I read in the news, my mom read in the newspaper recently that 4 million was allocated for quote planning and design of a new Maui regional public safety complex. 4 million. But what that article didn't tell or remind the whole community is that about 15 years ago, the state had already spent 14 million on quote planning and design. Well, at the time, I was one of the community members that came out. Many from BEST testified and said, we can do better. And the community really said, no, let's invest in BEST, let's invest in drug court, let's invest in alternatives. And so that plan went away. And it really saddens me to know that that's being resurrected. And simultaneously, I look at our schools. There are schools that have bake sales to get textbooks in the classroom. If you look at the CIP list for Maui, Kihei Community School has not been built for years. There's no school on that side of the island. That almost 20 million that's being planned on planning and design, which is making prison consultants, architects, designer, engineers, they make the money. What is our community getting in return? And I know that this has happened on Hawaii Island. It's happened on Oahu too. So I'm hoping that, you know, collectively we can say to our policymakers, we can do better. Let's use evidence. And let's all champion this because we can save money, we can decrease crime rates, and we can more effectively address the harm that's being done in our community. But it does take political will. And I want to say that there are some legislators who have been champions of criminal justice reform. And we really need to build that consensus to say, let's just not react to what we hear is egregious on the news. Let's look at the evidence. And I also challenge our media. And I thank you guys for giving us the opportunity, because if we gave more people in the community equal time to hearing the success stories, then more people would say, hey, let's invest in what works. But the stories are very slanted. It's very slanted to the most egregious cases, which gives the community this perception that crime is absolutely rampant, which if you look at the numbers, there's actually been decreases. So that's a really long-winded answer, Mel and Charlie, but I hope that that kind of brings in some of the discussion about evidence and how we use it to make public policy decisions.
Well, you know, our show is an hour show, and my God, this is like so exciting. I'll tell you, first of all, thank you guys for coming on, and I agree with what you're saying, and you know, I have personally seen here on Kauai the benefits of drug court, but that's a program that, like one of the viewers put in, it's, you know, you're forced, you want your charges dropped, you follow this very, very difficult program, but as they go through the program, they realize that, hey, you know what, this is a better life. And then it becomes something that they want to do, and the little charges held over the head all of a sudden is not the reason why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're starting to understand that they want to be a better person. And, you know, more programs, you know, Habilitat, getting these people that's in prison, that's incarcerated. And I think this is what Charlie and I was having a discussion about, having these programs available for them prior to being released, having programs in place, like the guy who said his son was arrested 8 times in and out of jail, that should have never been going back to 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So having those programs, I fully agree 100% that it really comes down to our legislature and the county council. You guys, Maui, you cannot use Maui as an example because you guys get so damn much money in your county they can use to spend on social services. And the other islands like Kauai, we struggle, but I understand it's about priority. It's never about money. It's about priority. It's about priority. And, you know, it's always about priority.
Right. So Mel, some years ago, one of the representatives at the state legislature had said that, you know, the budget is a moral document. The budget reflects what we believe are our community priorities. And if we look at how much money, right, that's spent on incarceration rather than education, rehabilitation, we have to flip the formula, you know, for our community. And I just want to address, because you brought up something about how in drug court or some of these programs, there may be some judicial pressure. Either you join this program or you're going to face this amount of time. With MEO Best, we took, or sort of this, what we consider more like a harm reduction approach, which is to say, we respect your agency. We're going to give you the opportunity to participate. You're eligible, but it's absolutely your choice whether you choose to participate or not. And I can tell you in the 3 years at least that I was there, I think maybe 3 individuals out of hundreds declined services. I think one person maybe had some family with some independent wealth and they felt that their family could support them. And I forget what the other 2 situations were, but across the board, we were not, quote, forcing them. We just said, we're here for you. You decide if this is something you want to do. And we did work in partnership, like I said, with parole probation if they were under legal supervision. But I also think, so we need to have this gamut. Some of these programs, maybe somebody needs a kind of coercion from the court to say, do this or face time. But with us, we gave people, like we respected their agency. And you can see by the numbers, people took it because they knew they wanted to do something differently and to do better by their family and our community. And I'm hoping that we can come back on your show another time or even talk about
We're gonna have to.
of this.
We're gonna. I'll give the other 2 a couple of minutes each to do some closing comments. But you know, the other component too that's very important in all of this that we haven't talked about tonight is the victim side, the victim component, that someone was injured, someone was hurt, someone was, and that's a component that we must not forget when we're evaluating inmates that need to be released or should be released. So anyway, with that, yeah, we'll have that discussion on another time. But
yes,
Jeff,
restorative justice, definitely.
Yeah, I actually like that. Take a couple of minutes, Jeff, and your closing comments for the viewers.
Yeah, so we have a problem in Hawaii, and it is a solvable problem, but we're going to have to work together to fix it. I think the fact that we're having these discussions, is a really good thing. Shameless plug. If you're somebody who's tried other treatment regimens and to no avail, if you're somebody or one of your loved ones keeps going in and out of jail, if you're really serious and you're ready to change your life and become a winner and embrace change, then reach out to us. If you're from Hawaii, we will treat you. You don't need anything except a willingness. We'll treat you. All our numbers in all the jails. We work with the judiciary. We work with the drug courts. We would be happy to help people. If there are politicians that are watching right now and you would like to hear what we have to say and learn about, we've been in business 50 years. I think the fact that we're still in business and still doing the same thing speaks volumes that we're doing something that's working for some people. So if there's somebody watching that wants to learn from us, wants to learn from our experience, I am willing to talk to anybody, anytime that's willing to listen. I would invite anybody that's in the arena that are helping people, and that goes for Charlie and Mel and both you ladies. If you would like to come to Habilitat, take a tour of Habilitat, sit down and eat lunch with us from our culinary program. We got all no food, let me tell you. We would be happy to have you over to spend, part of the day there and get a feel for what's going on, because I've yet to have anybody come there and, hands-on. I'll give you access. You can talk to the people in the program all you want, as long as they're willing. And I've never had anybody come there and walk away that wasn't impressed. There's a lot of stories out there. Habilitat's this and Habilitat's that. You know what? A lot of that stuff is, it's just not true. Some of it is exaggerated or whatever. Seeing is believing. So for everybody on this call, really anybody in the industry of trying to solve these problems, these social problems that we have, if you're interested in coming and seeing what we do, I give you an open invitation. Give us a call. We'll give you the rundown on what we do, how we do it, why we do it. We'll answer all your questions. Very transparent about what we do these days. So I invite you to look out and check us out. Anybody that wants more information, if there's somebody watching that would like to call me and talk to me privately, I answer every single phone call. My name is Jeff Nash. I am the executive director of Habilitat. I've been there 25 years. I'm a formerly incarcerated person, formerly homeless person, and formerly addicted person. You can reach me at 808-235-3691. I would very much like to work with other people so that we can solve some of these problems. Habilitat will do whatever we can to help build a better community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I don't know if you noticed, but when you said we had an open invitation and you had good food of it, did you see Charlie go from that position up to that position? So,
got his attention.
Okay, let's get this straight. I did that because I want to make sure that I get a round trip ticket. I like go in and come out. I don't like go in and stay. That's
No,
the
you
reason
don't
why
have
I
to
came out.
stay. You got to buy your own airfare, but yep, you don't have to stay. But after we feed you, you might want to stay. So I get lots of people that come and go, man, if I'd like to check in here myself, because it's a nice facility, it's an oceanfront facility. The food is excellent. I mean, we feed people really well. In fact, I've had people say, you guys got the best food in the industry. But you know, it's not a vacation.
You know, you're making me want to go enroll.
But yeah, you guys want to come? Let me know. We'll hook you up.
I will definitely. Charlie and I will be, after this quarantine is lifted. Charlie and I will. Don't be. I'm telling you, we will be there.
Hey, come on down.
Margot, patiently waiting.
I just want to say thank you seriously to our Department of Public Safety in Maui, because they've afforded parents and children together to be able to do classes for domestic violence intervention. We do 4 classes, 2 for men and 2 for women. And, you know, since I left the BEST program and we were invited, you know, come and do these programs, you know, you can just see how thankful these clients are that we're able to come in there and give them the information that they need to be able to transition into our domestic violence programs on the outside. We work really closely with adult client services, our judiciary. Kudos to Debbie Kabibi. I know right now she's the director at Maui Economic Opportunity. She's trying to get grants for more programs in the jail. And we're really hopeful to expand to, you know, more case management and, you know, mentoring and family reunification if these grants come through. And she's worked really hard. Carrie Ann, our champion, and of course Gladys Baisa all these years, and Birdie Kong too in the past, has just been, you know, our amazing leaders and trying our best to get these programs going and keep them going in our community. You know, our police department works really hard, and, you know, the partnerships with everybody in Maui County, all of our nonprofits, we all hold hand. Aloha House, what would we do without them? You know, because all the substance abuse and CFS, the sexual abuse and the case management stuff they do, and Maui Family Support Services, like it goes on and on. We have so many amazing programs that are that safety net for our community members that need that help when they're coming back out into the community. So I don't know, that's my plug. Maui no Ka'oi, mahalo.
Well, we appreciate you guys. I think a lot of the viewers are very appreciative as well. So, Charlie, any closing comments, Charlie, before we wind this bad boy up?
Yeah, I just like to say thank you. First of all, Margot, I thought that was you, but I just got a little. I'm gonna send a little tag over to Mr. TJ Tihara.
Oh.
And my brother Augie Roback, as well as Val Hui. You know, Val just lost his son-in-law.
I just saw Val yesterday. He came by the house.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's
Wow.
we all used to hang on because I know Habilitat is at the end of Waikalua Road, all the way past all the way down to the end, because I used to go to Augie's house all the time. So I saw that place. But I do want to say thank you to all of our guests tonight. Thank you so very much. There is one thing that I would kind of like to share with Ms. Shirota, and that is use the New York stats.
Mhm.
Okay. Why I would be careful about using the New York stats with our administration and our elected officials is because New York had the highest rate of COVID. My brother died from COVID in New York.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm passionate about this program, what we're doing, the COVID discussion.
Mhm.
We use New York stats all the time, and yet the Department of Health and everybody went the opposite way. So if you're going to throw New York stats in there, I can almost assure you they're probably going to go the opposite way. So I think we gotta think outside of the box. If we want to get things done, we got to think outside of the box to make it effective. Because I agree that sometimes when we use a lot of stats, just by watching them, just by watching their body language, we can tell we lost them after the first 3 minutes. And I think our goal tonight, after what we've said, is we want to hold on to their attention so we can get that momentum going. That's what we want to do. So I'm all for it. I'll be more than happy to help. And but I just like to say thank you to all, because this has been an eye-opening experience. We shall do it again because, you know, we're going to change from COVID, but then there will be some things that we need to talk about. And one thing with our systems, it will not go away. As long as people act differently, we're going to have that problem. So we need to address it. And again, how do we address it in the early stage so we can release? My son was incarcerated at MCCC, but they gave him programs inside that got him better when he got out, and he's doing, I'm so proud of that kid. And, it was rough because daddy was a policeman at the time, and it wasn't easy. So he transitioned out, and he's a model citizen. And, I'm not going to knock it because there are success stories like that. So I want to say thank you to all of you.
Sure.
And Val Okimoto, if you're listening, Val, I think you got to jump on a bandwagon with us because I think we need to get some money for these for the programs, Val. Okay, Mel, take it away, Mel.
Yeah, I think it's a collective effort from every single part of government and the community. No one side is going to do this. I mean, I've been involved. I worked with Gladys for many years while I was in the Quiet County. I love that lady. So she comes on our show. I was so touched when I saw her name pop up. I was like, yeah, Gladys, she remembered me. She's always traveling the world. She's such a world traveler. But it's going to take a huge collaborative effort between everybody. And the system isn't working. It's not working. And I think an easy way is to go build new prisons. I understand, and that's a very simple way to basically show the public that you're doing something, but that doing something may not be accomplishing what you want to do. And it's going to be intervention. It's going to be schools. It's going to be, it's the community. Starts at the home with the families. I mean, there's so many moving parts. Fixing one part isn't going to solve the problem. There's so many different problems. Mental health, that is a huge component that we just don't have enough time on this show or any show to discuss mental health as it relates to, the public safety factor and incarceration. And Kauai, we lag in mental health services for our people. I don't care whether you're on drugs or whatever, it doesn't matter. We just do not have the facilities here. And I've seen it firsthand, where officers will take someone suffering from mental illness. What they do now is take them to the ER. ER doctor looks at him, says, no, he's fine. And boop, right back on the street. And that needs to change as well. And these people need help. They don't need prison. So it's a dynamic discussion. It's one that needs to be had. And I appreciate you guys bringing this on. I know they are. The thing with this show is a lot of people will watch it after we go off the air. A lot of people for the next week or so will be watching this. Legislators watch this, administrators watch this. So thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. I think a lot of people from the comments are looking at this issue differently after this show. So mission accomplished.
Mahalo. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you guys. Thank you guys.
Mel, I just have to say, that famous saying, if can, if no can, no can, right?
Can.
And we've proven that can. And so we just have to have more people echoing in the chorus to say can. We can do it. Hawaii can do better.
I would typically at this point, I would say Kauai strong, but I'm going to say Hawaii strong in this case here. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, we will have Congressman Ed Case on the show. So please be here. Hey, you guys come on the show and send your comments to Ed Case. We need some federal funds or whatever. He's going to be, again, none of our shows are scripted. We have no idea what the hell he's going to say, and he has no idea what we're going to say. So it's going to be fun. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. It is Friday tomorrow night. Congressman Ed Case. Saturday, Dr. Capono will be here. Dr. Capono Chong, what's his name? Charlie?
Henson.
Chong what?
Chong Henson.
Chong Henson.
He's with community health clinics on Kauai.
So we'll have that discussion on Saturday, and then of course Sunday, our night off. So with that, thank you all, you guys. Thanks again, all our guests. Stay safe. God bless. As usual, we love you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Aloha.
Good night. Aloha.